My name is Amy Lowe. I'm 28 years old. On Thanksgiving 2025, I walked into my parents' house in Greenwich, Connecticut, wearing the same steel-toe work boots I'd had on all day. They were caked in dried concrete. The second I stepped inside, my mother's eyes dropped to the floor. "Amy," she said, voice tight. "You couldn't have worn something cleaner?" I looked down. My boots had left gray tracks across her $800 Persian rug. 17 relatives went dead silent. My father set down his wine glass, loud enough for everyone to hear. "This," he said, pointing straight at me, "this is why we can't have nice things. Manual labor brings shame to our name." My younger brother Justin smirked from the couch. My mother grabbed a napkin and wiped the exact spot where my hand had touched the marble counter. Like I was dirty. Then my grandfather, 82 years old, sitting at the head of the table, slowly pushed his chair back. He stood up, looked my father dead in the eyes, and said, very calmly, "Should I tell them what your name used to be?" They had no idea what those boots had really built. They had no idea those boots had already walked job sites worth more than their entire house. And they had no idea that in exactly 11 days, I would be standing on a stage in front of 300 people, including every single person in that room, while my grandfather dropped the one truth they had spent their whole lives trying to bury. But before I tell you what happened on that stage, and before I tell you the secret I'd been hiding for years, please, take a moment right now. If this story is already hitting you in the chest, hit that like button and subscribe. And drop a comment below. Tell me where you're watching from right now. And have you ever been made to feel ashamed of the work you do? I read every single comment. Let's start this story together. Now, let me take you back. Because this story doesn't start at that Thanksgiving table. It starts years before that, in a town where what you do for a living determines who you're allowed to be. I grew up in Greenwich, Connecticut. If you don't know Greenwich, here's what you need to understand. It's one of the wealthiest towns in America. Median household income is over $180,000. Old money, hedge fund managers, attorneys, doctors. People who measure success by the college decal on your car and the title on your business card. My family moved there in 1998, when I was 1 year old. My father, James Lowe, had just started his financial consulting firm. My mother, Lauren, stayed home to raise me and my brother, Justin, who came along 2 years later. We lived in a 4-bedroom colonial in the Riverside section. The kind of house with crown molding and a circular driveway, and neighbors who hired landscapers because doing your own yard work was, apparently, beneath us. My father made sure everyone knew we'd made it. He joined the country club. He drove a black BMW. He told people at parties that his firm managed high net worth portfolios. And he was very, very careful about one thing. Making sure nobody knew where he'd come from. Because here's what I didn't know until much later. My father's name wasn't always Lowe. It used to be Lubinsky. My grandfather, Samuel Lubinsky, built half of Greenwich with his own hands. He was a mason for 50 years. Brick, stone, mortar, historic restorations, the kind of work that lasts centuries. He started his own company, Lubinsky and Son Masonry, in 1975. He employed 6 to 12 men at a time. He worked 60-hour weeks. He came home covered in cement dust, and my father hated every second of it. Not the work itself. My dad was good at it. There are photos of him at 16, standing on scaffolding next to my grandfather, trowel in hand, cement stains on his jeans. He looks proud in those pictures, strong. Before something broke inside him and convinced him that using your hands made you less than. My father changed his name in 1995. He was 25 years old, fresh out of Central Connecticut State University with a business degree. He filed the paperwork in April. Lubinsky became Lowe, cleaner, Simpler, Anglo-Saxon, professional. The reason listed on the legal form was professional advancement. My grandfather didn't speak to him for 6 months, but this is what my family never talked about, what they buried along with the name. My father worked as a truck driver for 6 years to pay for college. Not a quick summer job, 6 full years, 1989 to 1995. Cisco Foods, commercial delivery. Long-haul routes through Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts. He drove 65 hours a week. Made $12 an hour at first, 18 by the end. He earned every penny of that business degree with his hands on a steering wheel and his back bent over loading docks. And when he finally graduated, when he finally got that office job and that business card, he rewrote his entire history. He told my mother he'd worked in logistics. Technically true. He told his colleagues he came from a small business family. Also technically true. But he never, ever mentioned the truck, or the cement, or the man who'd taught him what hard work actually looked like. By the time I was born in 1997, James Lowe was a self-made professional. The Lubinsky chapter was closed. My grandfather sold his masonry company in 2003 for $180,000. Not much, barely enough to retire on. My father was embarrassed by how small the number was. I didn't know any of this growing up. I just knew that my grandfather was different, quieter. His hands were scarred and calloused. He wore flannel shirts and work boots to family dinners, and my mother always seated him at the far end of the table, away from the guests she wanted to impress. And I loved him. When I was 12, in the summer of 2009, I spent 3 months working with him. He was doing a small residential job in Norwalk, a patio rebuild for a family named Richards. I was his helper. I mixed mortar. I carried bricks. I learned how to read a level and why plumb matters and how to clean a trowel so it lasts 40 years. My grandfather was patient, methodical. He treated me like an apprentice, not a child. He paid me $8 an hour. I saved every penny, $600 total. And on the last day of that summer, he let me lay 15 bricks myself. He supervised everyone, checked my lines, tapped them level. Those 15 bricks are still there. I drive by sometimes just to see them. My grandfather said something to me that summer that I've never forgotten. We were sitting on the tailgate of his truck, eating deli sandwiches, cement dust on our hands. He looked at the patio we'd just finished and said, "Amy, you see this? The man who built this? Nobody's going to remember his name. But his work is still standing. That's legacy. That's what your hands can do." I was 12. I didn't fully understand what he meant, but I remembered it. My father's reaction when he saw the photo my grandfather took of me that day. Cement on my face, trowel in hand, huge smile, was to say, "Don't show that to anyone." By the time I was 16, the dynamics in my family were clear. Justin was the golden child. He played lacrosse. He got good grades. He went to Dartmouth. Then he got his MBA from NYU Stern. Then he landed a job as an investment banking associate at a boutique firm in New York City. Base salary, $180,000. Annual bonus, $35,000. My parents paid $75,000 toward his MBA. They called it an investment in his future. I, on the other hand, was the disappointment. I went to community college for 2 semesters, Norwalk Community College. I tried fashion design because I didn't know what else to do. I hated it. I dropped out in 2016. My parents were mortified. My father asked me more than once when I was going to figure my life out. I got a job with a temp agency doing traffic control, holding stop signs on road construction sites. $22 an hour. I wore a high-vis vest and steel-toe boots and stood in the sun for 8 hours a day while cars honked at me. My family assumed this was my ceiling, but here's what they didn't know. I liked the job sites. I liked watching the crews work. I liked the precision of it. The physics. The way a project that looked like chaos from the outside was actually a sequence of carefully timed moves. I started asking questions. How do you grade a road? How do you pour a foundation in the rain? What's the load-bearing tolerance for that beam? The site supervisor started giving me real answers. One of them, a guy named Connor, 28, civil engineer, told me I should go to trade school. He said I had the mind for it. He said the industry needed people who could think and build. So in 2018, I enrolled in the Connecticut School of Construction. 2-year program. Masonry certification. Project management. I worked temp jobs during the day and took classes at night. I paid every dollar myself. My student loan balance at the end, 0. My family never asked what I was studying. They assumed I was still figuring things out. In 2019, I took my contractor's licensing exam. 400 hours of studying. The pass rate was 52%. I scored 91. On June 12, 2020, at 23 years old, I became a registered major contractor in the state of Connecticut. License number MC-03-92156. The youngest person in the state to earn that license that year. The only woman. I didn't tell my family, not because I was ashamed, but because I wanted to build something first. I wanted proof. So on March 12, 2021, I filed the paperwork to incorporate Cornerstone Infrastructure LLC, Stamford, Connecticut. Owner and lead contractor, Amy Lowe. My first contract was for $85,000, a small municipal repair job in Norwalk. The client took a chance on me because I'd worked with his crew before, and he knew I showed up on time and got it done right. I finished that job 3 weeks early and $4,000 under budget. Word got around. By the end of 2021, I had 6 employees. By the end of 2022, I had 15. By the end of 2023, I had 28. By the end of 2024, my company's revenue was $8.3 million. And my family still thought I made $22 an hour holding road signs, because I never corrected them. Every time they asked what I did for work, which was rare, I just said, construction. They heard, laborer. I didn't clarify. And when they made comments at family dinners about how I worked with my hands or how I should think about going back to school, I just nodded and changed the subject. It was easier than explaining. Or maybe I was waiting for the right moment, waiting for the proof to be so undeniable that they couldn't dismiss it. That moment came in October 2025. The Fairfield County Historic Town Hall was built in 1876. Beautiful building, brick and stone, arched windows, the kind of structure that makes you believe in permanence. By 2024, it was falling apart. The town put out a request for proposals: full exterior restoration, masonry repair, new windows, electrical and plumbing updates, a DA compliance, all while maintaining strict historic preservation guidelines. It was the biggest project in Fairfield County in 20 years. Estimated cost, $12.5 million. 9 contractors submitted bids. 2 were major firms from Boston. 3 were from Hartford. 4 were local. My company, Cornerstone Infrastructure, was one of the local 4. I spent 3 weeks on that proposal. 87 pages, detailed timeline, crew bios, safety records, insurance, bonding, references from 8 completed projects, photos of my work. On October 15th, 2025, I sat in Fairfield Town Hall across from the town manager, Richard Aldridge, and 2 town councilors. My attorney, Victoria Hayes, sat next to me. Victoria is 38. Stanford Law. She helped me structure my company back in 2021, and she's been my attorney ever since. She's one of the only people who actually knew what I was building. Richard Aldridge looked at me across the table and said, "Ms. Lowe, I'm going to be honest. When I first saw your age, I was skeptical. But then I saw your portfolio. And then I learned your grandfather was Samuel Lubinsky." I blinked. "You know my grandfather?" "He did the brickwork on the old library in 1991, Richard said. "Still perfect. Not a single crack." That told me everything I needed to know about your work. We signed the contract that day. $12.5 million, 18-month timeline, my name on every permit, my license number on every state document. When I walked out of that building, Victoria grabbed my arm and said, "Amy, do you understand what this means? Your name is going to be everywhere, on state documents, municipal permits, press releases. You can't hide this anymore." I looked at her. "I'm not hiding. I'm just not announcing." She shook her head. "You're 28 years old. You just won the biggest contract in the county. You need to own that." "I will," I said, "when the time is right." The press release went out 5 days later. Small mentions in the Fairfield Citizen and the Connecticut Post. My name was in both articles. Amy Lowe, owner and lead contractor, Cornerstone Infrastructure, LLC. My father's consulting firm supplies construction materials to contractors across Connecticut. He reads every industry newsletter, every permit filing. He never saw my name. Or maybe he did. And he chose not to believe it. Let me tell you about the dinners. Because the Thanksgiving blow-up wasn't the first time my family made it clear I didn't belong. Christmas 2023. 22 people at my parents' house. My mother set up 2 tables. The main table where the adults sat. And the kids' table. A folding table in the corner for my cousin's children. Ages 8 to 12. My mother looked at me and said, "Amy, honey, maybe you'd be more comfortable at the other table? You know, with the kids? You come straight from work, and you're a bit, you know." She gestured vaguely at my hands. My hands were clean, scrubbed, short nails, but calloused. I sat at the kids' table without arguing, between an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old. They talked about Minecraft. I smiled and nodded, and when the 8-year-old, my cousin Ethan, asked me, "Why are you at the kids' table? You're a grown-up," I couldn't answer. I left after dessert. 8:45. Drove home crying. Easter 2024. Justin brought his girlfriend, Stephanie, corporate lawyer, Skadden Arps, $220,000 salary. Justin introduced me to her like this. "This is Amy, my sister. She's the one who works with her hands. You know, manual labor stuff." Stephanie gave me a polite smile, the kind of smile you give someone you pity. Later, I overheard Justin talking to her in the kitchen. I was 6 feet away. He said, "Yeah, Amy's different. She does construction or something. Road work, I think. She doesn't really talk about it. I think she's kind of embarrassed, honestly." I was standing right there. I left early that day too. July 2024. Family reunion at my Aunt Diane's house in Westport. 40 people. My father organized a photo. He gathered everyone he called the kids who made something of themselves. Justin, 4 cousins, all professionals, lawyers, doctors, an architect. He didn't call my name. I stood 10 feet away, near the dessert table, watching. My father made eye contact with me, looked away. The photo was posted on the family Facebook group later that night. Caption, "So proud of our accomplished family." 47 likes. I wasn't tagged. My Aunt Diane, my grandfather's daughter, walked over to me during dessert, put her hand on my shoulder, whispered, "He's a fool. Samuel told me what you're doing. I'm proud of you." I said, "Thanks, Aunt Diane." My voice cracked. That night, my grandfather called me. 9 p.m. He said, "I saw the photo. I wasn't in it either. Want to know why? Because I'm too busy being proud of you to pose for his bullshit." I laughed. Then I cried. September 2024. My father hosted a business mixer at the house. 32 people. Colleagues. Potential clients. I stopped by because I thought it was a family gathering. When I walked in and saw it was a work event, I should have left. But my father saw me. He introduced me to one of his clients, a developer named Doug Parsons. "Doug, this is my son Justin, investment banking, doing very well, and, He looked at me, paused. "This is Amy. She's, taking some time to figure out what she wants to do." I stood there, in my clean jeans and my nice blouse, and I shook Doug's hand. And I smiled. And I left. I stayed for 12 minutes, drove home crying again. 3 weeks later, I won the $12.5 million contract. Doug Parsons was on the selection committee. He voted for me. He had no idea I was James Lowe's daughter, because my father had never told anyone I existed. October 19th, 2024. 4 days after I won the Fairfield contract. My mother's 58th birthday. Dinner at the Capitol Grill in Stamford. 15 minutes from my office. The irony wasn't lost on me. 6 of us at the table. My parents. Justin. Justin's girlfriend Stephanie. Me. And at some point during the appetizers, my mother started talking about me like I wasn't sitting 4 feet away. "I just worry about her, you know," she said to my father. "She's 28. No career, no boyfriend, just working outside all day." "What kind of life is that?" Justin chimed in. "Maybe we should, stage an intervention? Get her to see a career counselor or something?" My father sighed. "She's stubborn." Gets it from my father. My grandfather wasn't at that dinner. He'd been too tired to come. I sat there, picking at my salad, silent. Stephanie looked uncomfortable. To her credit, she tried to change the subject. But the damage was done. When dessert came, chocolate cake, my favorite, my mother offered me a slice. "At least have some cake, honey. You look thin. Are you eating enough?" I declined, excused myself to the bathroom, sat in the stall for 6 minutes, staring at the tile floor, composing myself. When I came back, I said, "I have an early site visit tomorrow. I need to go." It was 8:45. Dinner wasn't over until 9:30. I left $60 in cash on the table for my portion. Walked out before the check arrived. In the restaurant bathroom, I'd stared at myself in the mirror. And I'd thought about the contract sitting in my office safe, the permits with my name on them, the $12.5 million. And I thought, just 1 more month. Then they'll know. And I'll never have to sit through another dinner like this again. 1 week after Thanksgiving, I received an invitation in the mail. Justin's wedding. June 14th, 2026. The Plaza Hotel in New York City. 300 guests. Estimated cost. Somewhere between $80,000 and $100,000. My role? Bridesmaid. Obligation to family. But here's what was written on my invitation, in Stephanie's handwriting. No +1 for Amy. Work schedule unpredictable. Everyone else got a +1. Even my cousin Emily's boyfriend, who she'd been dating for 3 months. But not me. Because my work schedule was unpredictable. I had a boyfriend. Connor. The site supervisor who'd told me to go to trade school back in 2018. We'd been dating for 8 months. Serious. But I'd never introduced him to my family because I knew they'd judge him. He worked construction. He wore boots. He drove a pickup truck. He was exactly the kind of man they'd look down on. When I told Connor about the wedding invitation, he said, "Fuck them. You don't need their permission to bring me." I put the invitation on my desk. Next to the program from the awards gala on December 8th. 2 events. Two versions of my life. One where I was invisible, one where I was celebrated. And I had to decide which one was real. December 3rd, 2025. 5 days before the gala. I went to my grandfather's house in Norwalk. Small Cape Cod. 3 bedrooms. He'd bought it in 1978. My grandmother, Martha, died in 2019. He hadn't cleaned out the attic since. We spent the afternoon going through boxes, and that's when I found it. A cardboard Budweiser box, labeled in black marker, Lubinsky Masonry, 1975 to 2003. Inside were 47 photos, 12 documents, old tools, business cards, letterhead that said Lubinsky and Son Masonry across the top. My grandfather sat next to me on the attic floor. He held up a photo from 1984. My father at 16, standing on scaffolding, cement-stained jeans, trowel in hand, arm around my grandfather, both of them smiling. My grandfather's voice shook. This was your father, before he forgot who he was, before he buried the name. He was good, Amy. Really good. Strong. Proud. And then something happened. College, maybe. The world told him he wasn't good enough. I don't know. But he used to look at me the way you look at me now. He wiped his eyes. I miss that boy. At the bottom of the box, I found 2 pieces of paper. The first was a birth certificate. James Michael Lubinsky, born March 3, 1970. The second was a court document. Name change. Filed April 15, 1995. Approved May 2, 1995. Reason listed. Professional name preference. I looked at my grandfather. He was crying. He came to me. My grandfather said. He said, Dad, I need you to understand. Nobody's going to hire a Lubinsky. It sounds too blue collar. I said, Son, that name built you. And he said, Dad, that name will bury me. My grandfather's voice broke, and he walked out. I found one more thing in that box. A letter, handwritten, 1 page, blue ink, dated September 12th, 2010. It was addressed to my father, but the envelope had never been stamped, never mailed. It said, James, I'm proud of what you became. The business, the house, the success. But don't forget what we were. Those hands that you hide, they built more than buildings. They built you. And now Amy's got those same hands. Don't make her ashamed of them like you were of yours. Love, Dad. I held that letter in my hands, 15 years old, written when I was 13. My grandfather said, I chickened out, thought it would make things worse. Maybe if I'd sent it, things would be different. I folded the letter carefully, put it in my wallet. I'll carry it for you, Grandpa. December 7th, 2025, the night before the gala. I finished work at 6 p.m., drove home. The route took me past my parents' street. I slowed down, looked at the house. Lights on, family inside. Normal Sunday evening. I didn't stop. I kept driving. And I realized something. I didn't need their permission anymore. Not to build, not to succeed, not to exist. I got home at 7:15. Ordered Thai food, pad see ew, ate alone, watched TV but didn't pay attention. At 9 p.m., I took out the clean pair of work boots I'd bought specifically for the gala, Timberland Pros. Same style as my everyday boots, but new, polished. I set them next to my suit, charcoal gray, Theory brand, $848. I'd bought it at Nordstrom in Greenwich 3 days earlier. The sales associate had asked what I was shopping for. A gala, I said. Oh, wonderful. What do you do? I'm a contractor. She paused, looked confused. This is very professional for that. That's the point, I said. Now those boots sat next to that suit, 2 parts of the same person. I didn't sleep much that night. I got up at 2 a.m. and practiced my acceptance speech in the bathroom, whispering so my neighbors wouldn't hear. I'd written 6 drafts. This was the final one. 380 words, 3 minutes and 20 seconds. It focused on Samuel, on craft, on legacy, on the work mattering more than the title. It didn't mention my family directly, but the subtext was clear. I went back to bed. Woke up at 5:30 without an alarm. December 8th, 2025. The day everything changed. The Wadsworth Atheneum Museum of Art is in Hartford, 85 miles from Greenwich. I left my apartment at 4:30 p.m. in my Ford F250. The valet looked surprised when I pulled up. Most guests were arriving in BMWs and Mercedes. I tipped him $10. Inside, I was escorted to the recipient's lounge. 6 award winners, 4 men between 48 and 67. 1 woman, 54, and me, 28. One of the men asked what I did. "I'm a contractor," I said. "Oh, like project management?" "No," I said. "I run a construction company." His face changed. Surprise. "How old are you?" 28. "Wow, good for you." I smiled. Didn't respond. At 6:45, the event coordinator came in. 15 minutes. Family and guests are being seated now. I looked toward the main hall. Somewhere out there, my parents were sitting down. Table 8, sponsor table. They'd arrived at 6:15. I knew because I'd checked the sign-in sheet. They had no idea I was here. At 6:52 p.m., my father opened the program. Flipped through it. Stopped at page 8. His face went pale. My mother leaned over. "James, what's wrong?" He handed her the program. Pointed. She looked. Her hand went to her mouth. There was my photo. Professional headshot. Taken at my office. Next to it, Amy Lowe, owner and lead contractor. Cornerstone Infrastructure LLC. Recipient of the Preservation Excellence Award for the Fairfield County Historic Town Hall Restoration, $12.5 million project. Justin noticed. "What? What is it?" My father handed him the program. Justin stared, then pulled out his phone, Googled Cornerstone Infrastructure Connecticut. My company website came up. Projects. Photos of me on job sites. Hard hat. Clipboard. Clearly in charge. He clicked on the About Us page, my bio, my credentials, my license number. He showed my parents. My mother whispered, "This can't be right. Amy works road crew. She holds signs. She makes $22 an hour." My father said, voice tight, "She never told us that." "We assumed." Justin scrolled, found an article from October. Fairfield County awards historic restoration contract to local firm. He read it out loud. Owner Amy Lowe, 28, said the project honors the history of the building and the skilled tradespeople who built it. Silence at table 8. Doug Parsons, my father's client, the developer who'd voted for my bid, leaned over. "Jim, is that your daughter? The contractor?" "Holy shit, I voted for her on the Fairfield committee. Had no idea she was related to you. She's phenomenal." My father couldn't speak. The lights dimmed. A voice came over the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our Master of Ceremonies, Dr. Richard Aldridge." My father grabbed my mother's hand. Hard. My mother whispered, "What do we do?" My father said, "We watch. And we pray she doesn't humiliate us in front of 300 people." Justin, under his breath, "We already humiliated ourselves." Richard Aldridge took the podium. White hair. 60-ish. Town manager of Fairfield for 15 years. "Our next award," he said, "recognizes excellence in historic preservation. The Fairfield County Historic Town Hall, built in 1876, had fallen into disrepair. Multiple contractors said it couldn't be saved affordably, but one contractor, a young woman who learned her trade from her grandfather, a master mason, saw what others didn't. She saw legacy. She saw history worth saving. Behind him, slides appeared on the screen. The town hall in 1876. Beautiful. Then the town hall in 2024. Crumbling brick. Broken windows. Then the restoration plans. My designs. Then permits. My name. My license number. MC-0392156. Richard continued. She placed the winning bid, $12.5 million, and at 28 years old she became the youngest contractor to win a project of this scale in Connecticut history. Applause started. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to present the Preservation Excellence Award to Amy Lowe, owner and lead contractor of Cornerstone Infrastructure, LLC. The room erupted. I walked onto the stage from the side. My boots, the polished timberlands, clicked on the hardwood. Click, click, click. Camera flashes. 300 people standing. I saw table 8. My father, frozen. My mother, hand over her mouth. Justin, phone still in his hand. I saw table 12. My grandfather, standing, crying, hand over his heart. I reached the podium, shook Richard's hand, turned to face the crowd, and I began. Thank you. I'm honored to receive this award. But I'm not standing here alone. I'm standing on the shoulders of every person who taught me that building isn't just a job, it's a calling. My grandfather, Samuel Lubinsky, was a mason for 50 years. He taught me that your hands can create legacy, that the work matters more than the title, that you don't need permission to build something meaningful. You just need skill, integrity, and the courage to put your name on it. When I started my company 4 years ago, people doubted me. I was young. I was a woman. I came from a family that valued other kinds of success. But I learned something important. The people who doubt you aren't the ones who matter. The people who see your worth? Those are your people. This building, the Fairfield County Historic Town Hall, was built in 1876 by workers whose names we'll never know. But their work is still standing. And in 2027, when this restoration is complete, I hope people will walk through those doors and remember, someone cared enough to preserve this. Someone honored the past while building the future. My grandfather used to say, the work speaks louder than the name on the business card. And I believe that. But I also believe this. The name matters. The name you choose. The name you honor. The name you refuse to bury. To everyone who's ever been told their work isn't good enough, smart enough, or valuable enough, this award is for you. For every person who builds with their hands and their heart. Thank you. The room exploded. Standing ovation. Applause that didn't stop. I held the crystal award. Heavy. Engraved. Amy Lowe. Preservation Excellence Award 2025. I stepped off the stage, and then something happened I didn't expect. My grandfather stood, walked toward the stage. Slowly. Event staff looked confused but didn't stop him. He was 82. Who was going to stop an old man? He took the microphone. Silence fell. My grandfather stood at that podium, looked out at 300 people, and said, "Excuse me, I'm Samuel Lubinsky, Amy's grandfather. I wasn't supposed to speak tonight, but I'm 82 years old, and I've been quiet for too long. That's my granddaughter. Her real name is Amy Lubinsky Lowe. She built what I couldn't. She honored the name her father tried to bury. 40 years ago, my son, James Lowe, sitting right there at table 8, changed his name because he was ashamed of being a laborer's son, ashamed of these hands. He held up his hands, scarred, calloused. Hands that built half of Greenwich, hands that put him through college, hands that he called a disgrace. 2 weeks ago, at Thanksgiving, he called Amy a disgrace for working construction, for wearing work boots, for doing the same honest work I did, the same work he did before he decided it wasn't good enough. Amy didn't know I'd be here tonight to say this, but I promised myself, if she ever got the recognition she deserved, I'd make sure everyone knew the truth. The name Lubinsky isn't a shame. It's a legacy. And she's carrying it forward. James, my son, I love you. But you're wrong. And tonight, in front of all these people, I'm setting the record straight. Our name, her name, is something to be proud of. He set the microphone down, walked back to table 12, sat. The room was silent for 5 seconds, then applause. Scattered at first, then building, then a standing ovation. For my grandfather. For truth. I stood backstage, watching on a monitor, crying. 20 minutes later, backstage, I was doing press photos when my father appeared. Amy. His voice was tight, controlled. I turned. We need to talk. Now. I looked at him. No, Dad. We don't. Not tonight. You humiliated me, in front of everyone, my clients, my colleagues. I set down the award, stepped closer. I didn't humiliate you. I accepted an award I earned. You humiliated yourself by assuming I wasn't worth knowing. His face went red. You lied to us. I never lied. You never asked. You let us think. You chose to think. You chose not to believe I could be more than what you decided I was. My mother appeared behind him. Amy, please, can we just talk? Mom, not now. I have press. I have people who actually want to celebrate with me. You can go home. My mother started crying. We're proud of you. I cut her off. Stop. Don't do that. Don't pretend now. I needed you to be proud 2 years ago. 4 years ago. When I started my company. When I won my first contract. Where were you then? Silence. My father tried. We didn't know. You didn't want to know. There's a difference. I turned my back. Walked toward my grandfather. Toward Paul, my foreman. Toward Victoria, my attorney. Toward the people who'd seen me all along. Behind me, I heard my mother call. Amy, please. I didn't turn around. Not because I didn't love them, but because I finally loved myself more. 15 minutes later, Justin found me. Amy, hey. I was standing with my grandfather. Paul. Victoria. Justin approached slowly, hands in pockets. I need to say, I'm sorry. I didn't know. About the company, about any of it. I looked at him. I know you didn't, Justin. Why didn't you tell us? Why didn't you ask? In 4 years, how many times did you ask me about my work? Actually ask? Not dismiss it. Not mock it. Ask. He was quiet. That's what I thought, I said. Can we start over? Maybe, but not tonight. Tonight, I'm celebrating with the people who've been here all along. Justin looked at my grandfather. At Paul. At Victoria. He got it. I'll go, he said. He turned. Stopped. Turned back. For what it's worth? That speech was incredible, and I'm sorry I never saw how incredible you are. Thanks, Justin. He left. And I felt something unexpected. Not anger. Not satisfaction. Just sadness. For all the years we could have had, my grandfather handed me something. A photo. From the box in his attic. 1985. My father at 15. My grandfather at 42. Both on scaffolding. Cement-stained. Arms around each other. Smiling. On the back, in my grandfather's handwriting, Lubinsky and Son Masonry, Morrison Project, summer 1985. Proud of my boy. My grandfather's voice was soft. This was him. Before he forgot who he was. He was a good worker, Amy. Strong. Proud. Something happened. Maybe college. Maybe the world told him he wasn't good enough. I don't know. But he used to look at me the way you look at me now. His voice broke. I miss that boy. I held the photo. Looked at my father's young face. before the shame. I'm not asking you to forgive him tonight, my grandfather said. But maybe, someday. He's my son, and you're my granddaughter, and I love you both. I put the photo in my purse. Thank you, Grandpa. I left the gala at 9:30, said goodbye to my grandfather, to Paul, to Victoria, walked to the valet, got into my truck, sat there for 5 minutes, engine off. On the passenger seat, the Crystal Award, wrapped in my jacket. My phone, 89 notifications. I didn't check them yet. I just sat, processed, felt everything. Exhaustion, relief, pride, sadness, hope. I started the truck, drove home. The route took an hour and 25 minutes. I-84 West, I-91 South, Route 15 to Stamford. I got home at 10:55. Carried the award inside, set it on the coffee table, then moved it to the shelf next to the photo of me and my grandfather from summer 2009. Perfect placement. I stood there in my $800 suit and my polished work boots. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I had to prove anything to anyone. I was enough. I'd always been enough. They just couldn't see it. The next morning, I woke to 200 notifications. News articles, Hartford Courant, Connecticut Post, Fairfield Citizen, headlines, Young Contractor Wins Award, and Grandfather's Emotional Defense. Text messages from relatives, some congratulations, some confusion, some asking why I'd never told them. I responded to the supportive ones, ignored the rest. My phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Ms. Lowe, this is the Hartford Business Journal. We'd like to feature you in our 30 Under 30 issue. 2 months later, late January 2026. My company was thriving. 2 new contracts, $6.8 million combined, a third in negotiation. I'd hired 4 more employees, 39 total now. My office had expanded, 1,600 square feet. And something else had changed. On January 15th, a letter arrived. Handwritten. 2 pages. From my father. It said, Amy, I don't know how to start this except to say, I'm sorry. I was wrong. About you. About your work. About what matters. I spent 40 years running from my past because I thought it defined me. But you showed me that our past is only part of who we are. You took the name I buried and you honored it. You built something I was too afraid to build. I'm proud of you. I should have said that years ago. I'm saying it now, even though I know it's late. Can we talk? Dad. I waited 13 days. Then I texted, Coffee? We met on January 28th. Starbucks, Stamford. We talked for 2 hours. He cried. First time I'd seen that since I was a child. He apologized for everything. Thanksgiving. The years of dismissal. The name change. Not seeing me. I said, I forgive you. But things are different now. I'm not asking for your approval anymore. If you want a relationship, it's on my terms. He agreed immediately. Asked if he could see the job site. I was surprised, but I said yes. On February 5th, he came to Fairfield. Watched me work for 3 hours. Saw my crew respect me. After, he said, You're better at this than I ever was. We're not fixed. We might never be the family we could have been, but we're talking. Justin joined my company on February 1st. Financial advisor. Took a 50% pay cut from investment banking. He's learning the business, proving commitment. Our relationship is careful, professional. But the teasing is starting to come back. My mother calls every Thursday at 7 p.m. Started mid-December. We talk. Small talk at first. Now deeper. She went to therapy, working on her own complicity. She visited my office on January 22nd. First time ever. She cried when she saw my awards. My photos. My crew. On December 20th, 2025, I announced the Lubinsky Trade Scholarship. $250,000 initial funding. $50,000 per recipient, distributed over 4 years. For students from working-class families pursuing skilled trades. 47 applications in 3 weeks. The first recipient, Maria Gonzalez, 19, from Bridgeport. Her mother cleaned houses for 20 years to support 3 kids. Maria wants to be a Mason, like her uncle in the Dominican Republic. He died in a construction accident in 2019. She's honoring his memory by learning the craft right. On January 16th, we held a small announcement at my office. Maria, her family, my grandfather, my crew. I gave a short speech. 3 minutes. Afterward, Maria's mother, Rosa, grabbed my hands, rough, calloused from 20 years of cleaning. She said, "You gave my daughter permission to be proud of her hands, like your grandfather gave you." And I thought, that's it. That's why we build. Not just buildings, but futures, legacies. The next generation of people who won't have to apologize for their work. Late January. Job site, Fairfield. Project 45% complete. Ahead of schedule. I'm teaching a new apprentice. Sophie, 22. Started January 6th. We're sitting on my truck tailgate, lunch break, sandwiches from the food truck. She asks, "Amy, can I ask you something personal?" "Yeah." "Did your family support you when you started, or did you have to do it alone?" I pause. Look at my boots. The same Timberlands I wore to the gala, now properly worn, scuffed, cement stains, broken in from 8 weeks of work. "Not at first," I say. "They thought I was making a mistake, thought I was wasting my potential. But I didn't wait for their permission. I built this company because I believed in it. And eventually, some of them came around. My dad and I had coffee 2 weeks ago. First real conversation in years. Some didn't come around. And that's okay too. But either way, I built something that's mine, that's real, that matters." "That's really brave," Sophie says. I shake my head. "No, it's just honest work. That's all it's ever been." End of the day, 4:30. Sophie leaves, waves. "See you tomorrow, Amy." I stay, walk the site, inspect the masonry, run my hand over the bricks, check the mortar, stand back, look at the building. Half restored, beautiful, pride, quiet, deep. I drive home, past my parents' street. No heavy feeling anymore, just neutral, maybe even warmth. Home is home now. Sanctuary. My office. Late January afternoon. The walls tell the story. Awards shelf. Preservation Excellence 2025. Women in Construction 2024. Hartford Business Journal 30 Under 30 recognition. Samuel's trowel in a shadow box. Engraved, Samuel Lubinsky 1943 to 2026. He's still alive. Still here to see it. Photos, 12 total. Gala night, Samuel's speech, scholarship announcement, job site progress, crew celebrations. A framed quote I chose after the gala. "Legacy isn't what you're given, it's what you build." Samuel Lubinsky. He said that to me when I was 12. My company sign, updated January 5th, Cornerstone Infrastructure, LLC, Amy Lubinsky Lowe, owner and licensed contractor, registered major contractor number MC-0392156, honoring the legacy of Lubinsky Masonry, established 1975. My grandfather cried when he saw that last line. On my desk, blueprints for 3 active projects. Hard hat, yellow, embroidered, A. Lubinsky Lowe. Coffee mug, gift from my crew, says Best Boss. Samuel's watch on my wrist, Timex from 1985, leather band worn soft. I wind it every morning. A framed photo, new, added January 20th. Me, my grandfather, Paul. Gala night, formal wear, huge smiles, Caption in my handwriting, my real family. I still wear the same work boots. Only now, when I walk into a room, everyone stands up. Not because I proved my family wrong, but because I proved myself right. The name Lubinsky isn't buried anymore. It's on my license, on my business cards, on permits for buildings that will stand 100 years. My grandfather taught me that your worth isn't measured by the job title your parents want. It's measured by the legacy you build with your own two hands. And I built something. Not to prove a point, not to get revenge, but because this is who I am. This is who I've always been. I'm Amy Lubinsky Lowe. I'm a contractor. I own a multi-million-dollar company. I wear work boots. I get my hands dirty. I build things that last. And I'm proud. Not proud that I was right, but proud that I never stopped believing I could be. It's late January. My company is growing. My family is healing. Slowly. My grandfather is still here to see it. And every morning, I wake up and I don't have to hide anymore. That's the real victory. Not the award, not the vindication, but the freedom to be exactly who I am. These boots have walked a long road, from my grandfather's job sites when I was 12, to that Thanksgiving dinner where I was called a disgrace, to a stage where 300 people stood up for me, and now they walk my own job sites, building my own legacy, on my own terms. If you're out there, hiding who you are because someone told you it wasn't good enough, stop. Build it anyway. They'll see it when it's too big to ignore. And when they finally do, you won't need their approval anymore, because you'll already have yours.